and every immigrant I ever meet, they all think the same thing.
And I'm not an immigrant, by the way. I mean, I've been here most of my life. I'm hardly an immigrant.
Did you immigrate?
Do I look like an immigrant?
From India to America.
Look at me. Do I look like an immigrant?
Hello, namaste. Auntie Zarna here with the Zarna Garg Family Podcast. So excited because all 5 Gargs are in the house. And today's topic, you're not going to want to miss it. It's so fun. It's so light. And so everybody's going to have an opinion. Let me start by introducing the family. My youngest, my 7th grader, Veer Garg. My rising freshman in college, Bridge Garg, my daughter who is finishing senior year at Stanford, Zoya Garg, and my husband, Shalabh Garg, veteran on Wall Street for 25 years. We've been married together and he's been working on Wall Street, right? 25 years. Anyway, we're going to get right into it. Today's topic is, what is the importance of brand names in your life? What brand names do we love? What do we think are not worth the money, are a little overhyped? And even in careers, in school, in college, in the first job that you have, from there to what t-shirt do you buy and where you vacation, we want to know it all. What do we think about brand names? Does anybody have a strong opinion?
The first thing I think of when I think of brand names is the initial shock factor. I think whenever someone talks about something that has a large brand name, whether it's clothes, college, jobs, or whatever, there's always a shock factor. For example, whenever I talk to someone, or this never really happens, but sometimes it does because I go to college now, and they'll say, oh, I go to Harvard, or I got into Harvard, just to give an example. Initially, of course, you're going to be like, oh my God, he goes to Harvard. That's just the initial shock factor. Whereas if they said somewhere else not as known, you wouldn't think, oh my God, they go there just as much. So I think that's the first important thing when it comes to brand value, is the fact that everyone just like takes a second to acknowledge how insane that is. And
that insanity comes from the selectivity, right?
Yeah.
Because many of these brand names are open only to very small set of population. So, I have to say brand names matter.
Well,
now that our daughter may be starting at a brand name company for a job, how about that, right? That's a brand name.
Well, we're going to get into it. We're going to be like, is it...
My only point is brand names matter. Brand names is everything.
Why is it everything?
Because it gives a very good... It's a selectivity thing. Only a tiny amount of population gets to be part of the brand name.
So it's the exclusivity part of it that makes it valuable.
Yes, it's the exclusivity part of it that makes it valuable, and a certain amount of discipline that it takes to get there. Now, I'm also a huge fan of brand names like Loro Piana and Brunello Cucinelli. That's not exclusive, but to be able to buy those products, you need to have a certain amount of money that makes it exclusive.
But do you not think that they are manipulating this exclusivity? That the whole idea...
What makes you like Loro Piana more than Gap or something like smaller or something not?
It's the quality. The quality is just exceptional.
But like I've seen...
It's the same thing with a chef at the bungalow, right? That person who's delivering that food or that product or that quality has done just that one thing their entire life to get it to that exceptional quality.
But that doesn't mean there's not other restaurants that aren't just as good.
I'm not saying so, but I'm saying that the brand name, we're talking about brand names, right? The brand name, the reason that exists as a brand name is because someone spent hours and hours and hours to make it possible for that to be delivered to you in that quality.
Hold on. So you are saying brand name equals quality?
I'm saying brand name equals one measure of quality.
That was a good...
So do we all on this table agree that brand name equals quality?
Can you tell that mom is a lawyer?
That was a very lawyery statement.
She is paying attention.
She's been doing this to me my entire life.
Like shot you.
I actually just felt such a high degree of fear for Dad. What? I was like, if this persists, you're over.
That was just a really insane...
What? I'm asking the most basic question because
that's exactly what a lawyer would say.
Okay, so
before they pounce.
Because we know, for those who don't know, I'm not the most brand name oriented person. I went to a very modest school, University of Akron, shout out University of Akron, which was a great school. Nobody there was concerned with brand name. All my fellow classmates in college were working people. Like they all had 1 or 2 jobs in addition to going to college. People were just kind of focused on living their lives. I didn't even go to a very big brand name law school, and I did just fine. Of course, I didn't have the shock factor. You're right about that. No one ever looked at me and said, you went there, because no one even knew. It was usually like, where is it? But that didn't change my experience of what I did. You know what I mean? Yeah. But now you're going to a brand name college and you're going to a brand name college. Do you feel the difference? When you tell people that you're going there, do you feel a difference?
What do you mean?
When you say to people, I'm going to this college.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. When you say, I mean, it's different for me and her because in most people's opinion, Stanford is obviously like Stanford and Harvard. I use Harvard as an example, but Stanford's obviously right there with Harvard. That's like the top echelon of brand name and
But
shock
Cornell
factor.
is not that far behind.
It's not, but it's not Stanford. Like if I were to go up to someone and say, "Oh, I got into Stanford," it would be an insane like, "You got into Stanford? You go to Stanford?" That's just how it is.
I mean, I can't speak for your experience. I think the concrete things that you get out of a brand name is doors open a little bit more easily and a little bit more quickly for a first impression or a first look. So for example, I will never send a cold email without my Stanford EDU address. When I send a cold email from Stanford EDU, I am way more likely to even get a response than from a personal email. So, and not only will I get a response, I'll get a Calendly link like, let's sync up for 30 minutes. And in that time, I have the ability to make an impression. Whereas, you know, in other cases, that has been one way it's concretely manifested for me.
But I will tell you that the list of exclusivity and being known or not known is like, it's never ending in a certain way. Like
No,
there's
it's
no
not.
top. Because what
think
you
so
just said, Harvard and Stanford are right there. Many people in the rest of the world will disagree with you. They've not heard of Stanford. Everybody's heard of
Oh my
Stanford.
God.
Stanford has
I don't think there's a human being.
I was
there,
gonna say-
there is
exists.
branding. There is a branding issue that Harvard got right, that they've like been out there. I'm not saying it's better. I mean, I'm not a fan at all. But it is something that even in the deep villages of India, like where your kid goes to college, oh, Harvard, they've heard.
Yeah.
If you
She's
say
right.
your kid's going to
No,
the
I
best
know, there's
college in
obviously-
America, they assume it's Harvard.
No.
I mean, by the way, speaking of which, absolutely nobody has heard of MIT. But that doesn't mean
I mean,
amazing things are
everybody in
not
India has heard of MIT.
Yeah,
That's not
India-
true.
That's not true.
Shut up. Nobody. Oh, you have, because you went to IIT, and the people who don't get into IIT go to MIT.
And the people in your
But-
industry, for example, recruit out of MIT, right? Like they know what the value of that is.
Yeah.
It matters. I guess with brand names, there's like two kinds. There's one that's like the universality of like, do you know what a Gucci is? Do you know what et cetera is?
Yeah.
Like
Or
the
Coke.
sheer or Coke.
Everybody knows what
Do you-
Coca-Cola is.
It's a sheer mass
By the way,
number.
just as a public service message, Coca-Cola has so much sugar in it that if you leave that Coca-Cola can overnight and put a metallic coin into that Coca-Cola, next morning that metallic coin would be rusty.
Yes.
Okay. all
Okay.
right.
So I think there's
So it's not a brand.
okay.
It
It's
is
a
a brand.
drug.
It is a
It is
brand.
Coca-Cola is the world's
absolutely a
biggest
brand.
brand.
I meant brands,
I-
more like brands that are like a little bit above.
What you're
just
talking about is like prestigious exclusivity. and
yeah,
brands. I agree. I agree
just
with
not
that.
the knowledge of it. Like Gap is very well known too, but I don't think of
I
it
think
as a
that's what
brand.
the conversation is about. Is it important to be in a part of a society where you're?
But
at
that's
the
what she's
exclusive-
talking about. There's one world of brands which is like just being known
Yeah.
worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that level.
At a
Where
mass
you could
scale.
walk into like a tiny
Yeah,
village
everyone knows what
somewhere and
Coca-Cola
everybody
is.
knows what it is. And then there is this whole exclusive thing that like Gucci, Prada.
Like Apple
we
is a
buy-
brand. I don't think of it as exclusive. As a product.
It is it's very expensive.
I know, but this expensive for no reason. I mean, they keep changing their chargers every this thing to
But
make
they're
money.
it's expensive for
But
the
you pay
reason of
for it.
exclusivity.
You just bought a
They
phone
want.
yourself.
I know, because I feel like it's more like they've got you. As
Yeah, they
opposed to-
have got you.
They have got you.
They got
That's the
all of
point.
us.
That's how they make their money.
They got all of us. And now they might get our kid too.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, but it is a brand because it's exclusive.
Okay, but I
Apple.
have a huge point about exclusivity. So for me, I just started college like a week and a half ago. So I've been into college for exactly a week and a half, I think 2 weeks now. One huge thing that stood out to me out of everything is how much people want to be part of exclusive groups. The first
yeah.
thing that I noticed was there's a bunch of clubs at Cornell and every college obviously, but especially at Cornell, there's I think 1,000 clubs or something. There's just so many because everyone wants to start a club. Everyone wants to have the best club. And there's hundreds of like business clubs specifically. Everyone's very into business at Cornell. And I think they are at a lot of colleges. And one thing that every single person I met is just all of them are applying to these clubs. They all want to get into these clubs. They think getting into one of those clubs is like the biggest sign of doing well at Cornell. They're all doing as much as they possibly can. For example, to get in, you have to do a coffee chat, then you have to do another coffee chat, then an interview, then you have to present an info session, then you have to
Yeah.
do another interview.
Yeah.
And
What do you
all
get
of that,
for all of this?
all of that just to be inside of the club.
Yeah, and then not only to be inside
Yeah.
of the club, to then do work for the club,
For the
right?
club,
so it's
yeah.
actually
What?
you're actually
And you don't get paid.
and you don't get paid. So
You guys are doing this?
well, I had the same same experience as Bridge. In the first few weeks, when you're, figuring out what you're doing and you don't know what's right, you try to see what the mass is doing and see what you're missing. Yeah. And I remember it was just like application cycle after application cycle. I was asked to write long essays about who I am, what I stand for, what I can contribute to a community. And that was all to be able to say, I'm part of the board of a certain club, which then signified some sort of social status to the rest of the people in my grade.
Veer, what do you think about this?
About
Veer is our serial entrepreneur. He has built a beverage empire outside our building himself single-handedly. What do you think about this idea that you gotta lust for this club membership and all that?
No.
And brand names overall, Bridge.
Brand names overall, I think brand names are so overpowered. They're just, it just doesn't make sense.
You mean overrated? What do you mean?
No, overpowered. They're so powerful. Band-Aid and ping pong. People will say, I'm gonna go put on a Band-Aid. People will say, I wanna go play ping pong. Band-Aid is a company. The original thing is called a bandage. And ping pong is a company too. The original is table tennis.
Is that true?
Oh my God, Vera, I didn't know that.
Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. Ping pong is a company that makes those tables and makes those rackets. And makes the ping pong balls.
But the sport is called table tennis?
The sport is called table tennis, and Band-Aids are called bandages. Exactly. Nobody knows that.
It's also Xerox is the same. People don't...
Xerox doesn't exist anymore.
I know, but it was...
But that's an interesting point, because you're saying that basically we're all just...
People all say, let me go get a Band-Aid, I just got a scar. But, people don't understand that. That's not, Yeah, or
Ziploc bag.
Imagine we were just okay, let me just go get some Dasani instead of water.
So here's the question. So is it worth it to create a brand at that level? Branding is important.
Yeah.
Right? For example, just so everybody knows, people want to be my friend all over the world.
Yeah.
But my friendship starts, everybody's on a wait list. There is no immediate access to my friendship. I don't care who you are,
still on the wait
how
list.
famous you are.
I've been on this wait list my entire life.
On the wait list for a long time.
That's not true. You did accept Narendra Modi as your friend.
Yeah, Prime Minister Modi, I made an exception.
So
but
it's not true.
It is extremely important, especially in your case, to have a large brand name. Attaching the name Zarna Garg to anything now, it makes it 10 times more valuable.
Right, but it feels
it's almost as like you yourself are a brand name now.
I know.
But
She is a brand name. Yeah. For example, just to make something clear, I went to this club once, a comedy club, and I was there the day before when my mom didn't perform or wasn't the headliner, so no one knew she was going. And the day after when she was the headliner, when I went the day before, there was almost no one there. There was maybe 10, 20 seats filled out. When she was there, it was fully packed room. People were standing up because there wasn't enough seats so they could watch her. So that just shows how important brand value is, because you added the name Zarna Garg to
that is an interesting question. Yeah. I have a question for you. So now that you are a brand name in comedy, do you allow young comedians and help them?
Never. Never.
That's a lie, Mom.
That is so bad.
So many people.
No, that is, don't ruin my image out there in the world.
What about young writers?
I am not about helping anybody. I'm running a business here. Please do not contact me if you need help.
It's so funny.
But you don't help people knowing that you were in their position at a point?
No, I got out. That's why I don't like other immigrants also. I'm very happy. I'm fully American. Let's
Your
go.
Your mother is a mean person.
No, listen, the thing is that I want to help who I can and all of that is fine. But the building of a brand definitely requires a commitment and a bit of manipulation. And a lot. I mean, Hermes...
Why do you keep going after Hermes?
But the amount of manipulation they do to build their brand is actually pathetic. And people go fall for it. So I'm not, who am I?
I fall for it.
Everybody wants their bags. You know.
And by the way, brand name and exclusivity and exclusive brands is two different things.
Yeah, I agree.
You keep bringing up things like...
Why don't you define it?
I define exclusivity as something that is, the pinnacle of the industry that they represent.
Sure.
But most big brands do, Shalab. To your point, Insta soft drink market, Coca-Cola is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
You can't deny
That's
that.
What I think. I don't think it is the pinnacle.
Cheap. That's why you're it's not a brand.
Yeah, brand
it's
name
not
doesn't mean necessarily expensive, but I think in your head...
To me, it is. It does, yeah. It should be the most expensive access to that industry.
Well,
I completely disagree with that
Well,
because there's
actually-
things that are cheaper that are better quality.
Like who? Like, tell me an example. Tell me
Okay.
when a cheaper thing in this category is better than the expensive thing in the same category.
It's such a bad immigrant mentality.
That's
it's a
literally
very
the
immigrant
That's
mentality.
I completely
It's an
agree with
extreme
Violet.
immigrant mentality to think that the more expensive something is equals directly correlates to quality of the meal. I remember
Meal
first,
or otherwise, anything else
you
either.
and every immigrant I ever meet, they all think the same thing.
And
I
I'm
remember-
not an immigrant, by the way. I mean, I've been here most of my life. I'm hardly an immigrant.
Did you immigrate?
Yeah.
Do I look like an
immigrated from
immigrant?
India to America.
Look at me. Do I look like an immigrant?
That doesn't
Okay.
matter. You are an immigrant.
I don't know why there's so much immigrant hate this episode.
no, there's
We love the immigrants.
We actually love immigrants.
okay.
But I first noticed it when we went to get a chicken parm. And I remember telling it to you that same day is there's two restaurants that we go to when it comes to Italian food. One of them sells a $26 chicken parm, and the other one with pasta, by the way. The other one sells a $50 chicken parm with no pasta, and it's smaller. So it's just not worth it. But
No,
when it
but
came-
it's better quality. Somebody.
But
barely, it's not
He-
better
he's
quality.
imagining
It's
the
not.
better
I've
quality.
had both. They're,
It's
you
literally
can't
the
even taste the
Mandela
difference.
effect.
There's
It's
no
not
way
the
you can taste
taste.
the difference.
One thing is probably not as high quality chicken, and one thing is probably brought chicken that
Probably. Like, you don't
Probably.
know.
One
Go into the kitchen and check yourself. Like, there's no way to tell.
Okay.
How do you know?
I think one thing that you guys are touching on is the amount that a brand name enables trust. So,
Yes.
for example, I remember one pivotal moment in Mom's career was when she was passed at Comedy Cellar.
Yes.
Comedy Cellar is a huge brand name in New York City, and in the world of comedy, it's probably the biggest. And when Mom was passed at Comedy Cellar, people trusted that Comedy Cellar has the best pulse on up and coming talent. And therefore, people would come to Mom's show thinking, wow, this woman was passed, so this woman is worth watching, and thereby like started to really pick up a following at that comedy club. And I think one thing that Dad is saying is because this brand has its own established trust,
Yeah.
I'm going to therefore like pay that
It's
extra
like Goldman
amount of
Sachs.
money.
They recruit, or Citadel or any such large firms, right? They will interview, 10,000 candidates to select 2 or 3 that they ultimately employ. So you went through that rigor in the interviewing process. So hence a subsequent employer doesn't have to be as careful because that brand name is part of your resume. And now you can be like, okay, if Goldman accepted this candidate, it must be something about them.
But
or
that's-
McKinsey even, like any
Yeah.
one of these.
it's true.
But that's you. You trust those brand names. Mom, on the other hand, I think usually is the first to question a brand name and their ability to
They're
actually
liars,
success.
manipulators, not worth the money, overrated hacks. Not my
I mean,
brand.
come on. The government didn't even let Goldman Sachs go bankrupt in 2008. That's how important they are.
Okay, shut up. Okay, shut up. I get it. There's a lot. Dude, brand names, when they become that big, they have that kind of money that they will mess around with whoever they have to survive, and that is a fact. But there's so much life outside of the brand name mania. Can we at
Yeah.
least agree to that?
100%.
No,
No?
I don't think so.
What do you mean?
I'm a little confused on your point, but I think brand names run everything in society.
Oh, no.
I think I'm with Bridge.
No.
Bridge, I hear you, son. That's exactly
What
right.
are you talking about? No.
Brand names run everything in life.
They just run everything.
That's not true. There's a whole existence out there of people who go to normal colleges and do great. People who are buying t-shirts that have no name.
There's always going to be
there's
exceptions.
Exactly. There's always going to be exceptions. But the mass large of people, like it's, for example, okay, I went to high school named Lab and she went to high school named Bronx Science. Bronx Science in America is one of the most, like everyone knows about Bronx Science being a great school. It's prestigious and it's extremely harbors very smart students. On the other hand, no one knows about Lab. If I ever told anyone I go to Lab, they're like, I've never heard of that. So I ended up going to a good college out of Lab, but most of my class didn't get into what would be considered a top college. They went where they wanted to go, but not where the Stanfords or the Harvards or the Cornells or the Penns or the whatever. But her school, Bronx Science, this year in their class, every single student I've met, first of all, they sent, I think, 80 kids to Cornell, which is insane. They sent like 50 to MIT. I think they sent another one to Stanford. But that's a brand name. It's
I
not-
get it.
It's the exclusivity of the brand name. It's
And
difficult
we
to get
want
into
to
the
be
school.
exclusive.
You want to be exclusive.
Okay, one thing I will say about brand names is I think, first of all, Mom, I think you have benefited a lot in your career from certain brand names. So I think
I
Like
don't know
what? Tell
about
us,
that.
tell us. I want to know.
the Comedy Cellar thing definitely was pivotal. Even as you begin to negotiate book deals or major media projects, you're doing them with the biggest brand names. You're
Yes,
not
that is
doing
true.
them.
That is
yeah.
true.
So,
But that's mostly
I mean,
because
this whole
they want
sitcom
me.
thing that you signed.
What blew you up as a comedian was when you grew your brand on TikTok.
Yes.
That is what the official start of your like incline as a comedian was.
I wouldn't
is
say
when
TikTok
you blew
is
up
a
on
brand
TikTok.
name.
TikTok.
It's 100% a brand
She
name.
created a brand name on TikTok.
Yeah, on TikTok, yeah, that's what-
But
yeah.
TikTok is a digital marketplace.
No,
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
but
of course,
you're
but
aligning. You're
yeah.
aligning
Yes.
with.
Do you want to keep the sitcom announcement thing?
Yeah, it's fine. He barely touches on it. That's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But TikTok is.
But TikTok blew your name up.
Yes. So we became aligned in some way. It became you're a TikToker. You know.
So I'm just saying that even, for example, the big media, New York Times mentioning you, especially specific writers mentioning you who have their own brands, right? Like, I
Right.
think there are
I mean,
a lot
America
of
itself is a brand name as a country.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right?
Definitely, people, their dream is to go to the American dream.
The American,
Huge
yeah.
brand.
I
name.
do think
I mean, brand names is not just important. I think it's everything.
But I think that if you have the mentality that you, well, no, Mom, I think I'm about to get to one of your points.
Okay.
Is I think some people overly rely on brand names and they become really addicted to gaining more and more brand name stickers, right? Like instead of leveraging any one existing tool that you have, it's about how do I get the next one so that I'm seen as even more special. And I think that's actually a diminishing returns mentality.
Yes.
I think once you've earned a certain degree of brand success and you're able to work hard.
But that's in Korea. I'm saying that brand names even outside of Korea, whether it's retail or it's restaurants, which is food, or it's grocery.
But I'm
grocery, something as simple as grocery.
Yes.
That is true. Like we trust more restaurants. Like we wouldn't go to a different grocery shop market than we would normally go to because we don't trust that place. We haven't seen it yet.
So I guess this also kind of speaks to how important marketing and branding
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
your brand name is basically an explanation of what you are about,
Yeah.
what your business is about, what your company, and on the other side as consumers, we either believe it or not. Which brings me to, let's do a fun bit on what brand names do we love and what brand names do we think are overrated. Anybody have a brand name
I've got-
that
Oh
you
my God.
love
We're gonna get
and
so
that you
much
think
hate.
is, oh God.
I'm gonna get so much hate.
Well, what do
You
you
wanna go
hate? Tell us.
first?
We
Yeah, I'll
go
go first. I'm gonna do one and one because these are the only two I can think of, but I might have more later. So my first one that I don't like, Nike. I just don't like people love.
Oh my God, there goes my
I'm wearing
sponsorship.
Nikes. Like you can.
Why do you
I
not
know
like Nike?
all our sponsorships are flying out the window, but whatever. I don't care. I'm saying. I don't like Nike because I think their shoes are overrated.
On the basis of what?
Oh my God,
On
I'm
the
gonna start
basis-
crying.
Why are Nike shoes
Like
overrated?
I just first of all, I don't think they're as comfortable as other shoes.
You don't like Air Forces?
No, I hate Air Forces. I completely hate Air Forces. They're so basic, not comfortable. They just make you taller. That's it. And
I'm wearing Air Forces.
Make you taller? That sounds like a good.
yeah, but like whatever. Okay. Anyways,
And then an underrated one?
Yeah.
underrated H&M. I love H&M.
I put him onto that.
What?
Yeah, I
He
did put you
He
onto
did.
that.
He put me onto that.
H&M.
What do you like about H&M?
Their clothes are like the cheapest, but like I'm wearing H&M jeans right now. Like their clothes are so perfect. Like
They're very
shop at
good.
H&M.
Fast fashion, and they do have a recycling
I
program.
love workout brands. I
Word.
love how much branding goes into any workout apparel. I also find that like workout branding is very effective for me as a consumer when I feel like a workout brand has done a really good job of
Like
making,
which one is your favorite?
Like recently I really like Viore. I've been buying a lot of their
Viore is really
Viore.
cool.
I've
You
never even
showed
heard of
me.
it.
You should
what
check
co-
it out.
what country
for
is it
sure.
from?
it's I don't know what country
have
it's
no
from. It's just an up and coming workout brand, but
Viore.
Yeah, and one
Very
thing
similar to
that they-
Lululemon.
But one thing they've done very well is they've really niched themselves into a day to workout to night company where you can wear their clothes the whole day. It works for men, it works for women. The material is
I
very easy to
can't believe
wash.
I'm
it's
like
Wait,
that.
on
Dad,
our
Dad, Dad,
street.
Dad.
Shut up. It's right there.
But how
Do you
come-
think
I've
a
never been
company
there.
being from France makes you more
Yeah.
enticed
Yes.
to buying their product?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I feel like the French know when it comes to.
No,
I mean,
they
they're
don't know
horrible.
anything.
No.
The
They're
French
horrible
know
at pretty
nothing.
much everything else. But when it comes to clothes and consumer products like Hermes and so on and so forth, looks like they do a really good job. Wine and food and this particular thing is their specialty. I think every country is good for something and this country is good for this.
Okay, hold on. So, which is your most brand that you're not a fan of?
Come back to me on that one. I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else? Brands that we love? Anybody wanting to go?
I love QC Shoes, the Swiss company.
Yeah.
They've come up with sneakers that I love to wear.
Did you see that we all mentioned something related to workout?
I didn't.
Yours was
I did,
activity.
Nike.
You did, yeah.
I guess
Well,
that's
because
true.
we do move a lot in our house.
Yeah, well, I think it's like it's the new comfort clothes.
Yeah.
Is the,
I love the Butterfield next door to us, their food and their
But I'm guessing
produce.
no one. Butterfield's probably very local.
No,
It's local. It's local New York place, but it's really good. But it's really, really awesome.
That is a local brand. I mean, it's so expensive, but
Yeah,
it's
it is
really
a good local brand.
Any-
And
I
in
have
terms
one more,
of
I have one more, I have one more.
understated, I feel like the Japanese clothing company is very understated and very high quality. What's it called?
Uniqlo.
Uniqlo.
Uniqlo is the
Uniqlo's
brand.
done
It's cheap,
Great.
but it's
Yeah.
really good
Great.
quality.
Yeah, very good.
Goodles.
Oh, yeah,
Goodles taste really good.
What is
They
it
don't
called?
have like the most protein, but it's compared to like Kraft or whatever Velveeta. Like they have better everything.
Yeah,
They taste better too.
I would say yes. Bridge, do you have one that you love or hate or anything you guys? I'll tell you, recently I went shopping to the Gucci store.
oh wow, yeah.
Recently. I've not been a big Gucci shopper before, but I was pleasantly surprised with their stuff.
Yeah.
I was extremely surprised with how nice their staff was
Yes.
to us and how helpful they were.
were great.
Zoya and I went together. We ended up buying so much stuff and I love all of it. And it's not because it has the Gucci logo on it and all. I don't actually
We
care
didn't buy
about the
anything
logo.
with the
We
logo
didn't
on
really
it.
buy
Yeah.
much with the logo on it, but we ended up liking all their stuff. And it's the first time I went into like a designer brand store and felt like I also belong in that world. Usually I walk into those stores and it's like there's a little level of like, do they even want me in here? Especially because I walk in like this, right? With a very basic cotton kurta. I don't dress fancy.
Do you
in
think
my
that's because
regular
of the
life.
staff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the company. I don't know. But
I will mention though, Mom, you were recognized in that store by the staff.
I mean,
You were, and I think that's
Oh, what
important.
did they say?
As in, Mom walked in, and people didn't notice really what was going on. Then a few people began to be like, "That's the TikTok lady. That's Auntie. That's like," and they started to pick up on it. And the staff was extremely nice to you. And I think,
Oh, so they were not nice to you, the person.
and I just.
They were nice
gave you
to
the
you,
celebrity.
the
They were
brand.
nice to you, the brand, and I think, and I'm just pointing
Brand
that out.
names matter, guys.
I'm pointing that out because I think it's historically very important to mention it.
But that is why, and even though I'm not one to do social service, I hate doing social service, but that is why I insist on going everywhere I go in my kurta and my bindi, because any woman who looks like this, who's not the perfect size 0 and not everything, can also be a buyer, can also be a serious client for you, and I insist on putting that narrative out there into the world. Success doesn't have to look a certain way.
Like me. That's what you meant, right? Isn't that
I
what you
don't
meant?
know. Is that what I meant? I don't even know. Anyway, but if no one else has anything to say on the brands, I will say one thing about brands, a quote, because I love quotes. A quote that I heard from my friend ages ago, decades ago. She said her mom taught her that she's too, she doesn't have the, wait, hold on, let me get it right. She's too poor to buy cheap things. The quote is, I'm too poor to buy cheap things.
Because they go bad very quickly.
Because this woman who was my friend 20 years ago said her mom taught her to buy the best quality thing and take care of it and actually use it to the end of its life of purpose. And that kind of made me think about buying brands a little differently. That is it true that if I buy something expensive and branded, will I take better care of it? Will I hold on to it longer? So anyway, that's food for thought. And this, Bridge, you didn't contribute to likes and dislikes. You want to get something in there quickly?
I mean, all my like underrated, overrated things are very like intertwined with stocks. Honestly, that's honestly all I think.
Socks?
Stocks.
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 Stocks. Like
Stocks as in equity.
for example, yeah, I have some companies that I think that are underrated and something that.
Oh my God, Bridge, just stop. Like, seriously,
What
I'm not going to have an
company is underrated?
18-year-old talk about
But
stocks.
I want to hear it. Why not? He's passionate. He does his research.
Okay.
Tell us what's underrated, what's overrated in stocks. This is a surprise to me, so I'm waiting to find out.
This is just like the way that I've done my research and what I think. I think there's certain products Like, I think Starbucks is right now a little underrated. And I think their firing of the recent CEO and hiring the Chipotle owner was a good decision, especially since he's Indian.
Oh my God!
And I
Can we just stop
He
this?
lost
Hold on.
the Indian
You know what's
CEO.
interesting? You know what's interesting is that people like the fact that they hire a brown CEO.
Yes.
That's an interesting thing. And that is
Yes.
brand value. That has
Yes.
nothing to
But
do.
they fired him too.
No, I know, but the fact that they did hire him and the people liked it has to do with the fact
It improves
that they
brand
assume
value.
because he's brown that he is smarter. I think actually in my whole life, this is so interesting to think about now that I like just thought of it myself. In my life, there's been so many things that I never even associated with where people just assume things of me that were both good and bad, but they all came from brand value of the fact that my skin was brown. The fact that my
for
skin
example,
was brown.
you're this like good looking and well constructed body wise is a surprise for a brown man.
it is a surprise, but it's
Right.
also people assume I'm good at math.
Like same for me. Like people look at me like, how can a man be this handsome and be brown both at the same time? It is surprise to people.
Yeah, people are still dealing with it.
Yeah, they're actually still
Anyway.
recovering. As we speak.
It's like the brown people it creates stereotypes, but stereotypes go hand in hand with
It's
the
an
brand.
Indian
It's the brown
stereotype.
brand, and
Yeah.
some of them, honestly, in my opinion, work out to my favor. I like going into a room when people assuming that I'm a little bit more intelligent than the average person.
You
Yeah,
are more
well, actually dovetailing into that, right? Like mom's brand, one thing that really resonates with the people that we create material and content for is our brand is family, which is inherently a brown thing.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
I think brand in terms of skin color and in terms of culture is extremely powerful, especially if it's leveraged in a business context.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes many ways. There are many disadvantages to
Yeah.
having brown skin and being Indian culture. But we try to focus on the positives
yeah.
and be authentic because in real life, we do everything together.
Yes.
This is our long weekend. Right now, as we're shooting this, we had 2 days off where we were all together. We chose to come together and work because we love it. And we love to work together. So it is indicative of our brand. It's indicative of being very Indian while we're doing this. And as we wrap up every episode with a riveting section called Good Grades with Gargs, we too are going to wrap up this episode with each of us assigning somebody in this episode who gets an A grade, either for entertainment, either for enlightenment, for anything, the moment that becomes the breakout moment of the podcast. And we want to know from you who gets the A grade also. So please keep that in mind. Who wants to go first?
I'll go
Okay.
first. I'll go
Okay,
first.
hold on.
I'll go
Bridge,
first.
go first.
I'm gonna give my A grade to Veer because I thought the point about how I didn't know the ping pong table tennis point. I think that was extremely interesting. I never thought about how we just sometimes it just completely envelops the whole. If it's that big of a brand name, it envelops everything.
Wow. Okay. All right. No.
Well, I'm giving my A grade to Baya.
Oh,
Like, I know this, like, okay, whatever.
You're giving it to Bridge.
Yeah, I'm
Can you
giving-
say his name?
They said,
I,
"Oh,
I
Okay.
can't say his name.
Oh, he can't say his name.
oh,
Okay.
that is so.
If I
sweet.
say his name, he's allowed to slap me. That's a thing we have in like this family, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm giving it to him because I really like the immigrant point. I really like the fact that he pointed out that immigrants do believe in all these fancy, expensive designer brand names a lot more than regular people that were born in America do.
Right. I agree with that. I
Yeah,
think
it's
we're
so
kind of
true, though.
vulnerable
It is
to
so
it,
true.
to the branding. Okay. Anybody who wants to go next?
Okay, I'll give my A grade to Bridge. I think this underrated stock and overrated stock was really hot. I didn't know that I think into the fact that he's into stocks this much. You know, people
He is,
say he's
he's-
following through in his dad's footsteps.
Oh, what?
I mean, he's the older son following in his dad's footsteps. It's awesome.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna give my A grade to mom. I think brand names are important, and as somebody who's done Stanford, I did an internship at Apple. Like I did go to Bronx Science. Like I have been very from a young age interested in gaining brand names. But one thing that mom said to Bridge, which I'll repeat again because it's a quote that stays with me, is the amount of respect you show something is the amount of respect it will show you. And ultimately, it doesn't matter like how many brand names you have if you show something without a brand name a tremendous amount of respect, it will take you a long way, especially in a work context. And I think that's been true for my early career days too.
And thank you. Thank you for somebody giving me an A grade. So, because I never seem to get an A grade from anybody.
You say that every time you get one.
Because I'm hurting from it. I'm going to give my A grade on this topic to my husband, Shalab, because he has been consistent. it is true, while it is true that as immigrants, we are more vulnerable to falling for the big branding in America and in the Western world. It is true. But his whole life has been about that. He got himself into IIT in India. IIT is the biggest education brand in India. And this happened when he was a teenager. His family didn't even know about this school. He figured it out and thought, this is where I want to be. This is who I want to surround myself with. So even though today he is very fond of brands, the germ of it and the authenticity of it can't be denied. And we want to now hear from you. What are your favorite brands? What are your...
Oh, yeah, Dad went.
Yeah. He did, right?
Yeah, he did.
And what are your favorite brands? What are brands you think are overrated? We want to hear it all. And most importantly, who gets an A grade in this episode? Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode about our brand names worth it. We hope you enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.